Hello there, friends, and welcome to another episode in the Geology 101 Physical Geology series. I am Geology Professor Shawn Willsey. Thanks for joining me today. Today, in episode 23, we're going to kick off this next section in looking at how rocks deform, what we call rock deformation. You've probably seen rocks before tilted on end, maybe folded, maybe faulted. We're going to look at all aspects of rock deformation with this video series here in the next couple episodes. As always, this video series is put together similarly to my Geology 101 course I teach here at the college. Same concepts, same topics, so you're getting the same information and knowledge that comes right through in my college courses. So let's go ahead and get to it here. It's a pretty short episode today. I just want to introduce the topic of rock deformation. I have one little demonstration I'll do here in a second where I'll make the webcam a little bit bigger so you can see me. So first of all, as rocks get deformed, we're going to see that they can do one of two things in general. And the main type of rock that we're going to observe most of the time is going to be our sedimentary rocks and maybe some of our foliated metamorphic rocks, because those rocks have layers. And oftentimes it's hard to see rocks that have broken and been offset along faults, or rocks that are folded if they are not layered rocks. To think of like a granite with just a bunch of crystals in it. If you actually break that granite with a fault and offset it, it's hard to see that offset because you don't have a marker bed. You don't have a layer that you know was continuous through there. So we will focus a little bit with some of our images and stuff with looking at those sedimentary or maybe the foliated metamorphic rocks. So deformation, just as a definition, just the way rocks deform. And usually we see this along or near plate boundaries, but we also know that plate boundary stresses, tectonic stresses, can oftentimes be transmitted further into the interior, sometimes thousands of miles or kilometers away from the actual plate boundary, and cause rocks to deform. And so stress is a universal constant when we look at rocks. It's the force that deforms our rocks, and usually again plate tectonics tends to be the prevailing stress that deforms rocks, but other stresses might come into play as well. And then when we have stress that's not equal in all directions, and we actually use this term a little bit when we talked about metamorphic rocks and foliation, or the layering we see in metamorphic rocks, but we sometimes call that differential stress, stress that's not the same in all directions. We have a preferential direction of stress that exceeds the stress in other directions. And when we have that, you oftentimes get these permanent changes in the rock that we call strain. So a fun little saying here is in geology is that stress causes strain. The force that is exerted on the rocks can become permanent, permanently change the rocks such that those rocks then are strained. So if you look at this photo here, these are some layered sediments. These sediments have now been folded, and so they've exerted, stress has been exerted on them to the point that they've changed their characteristic, or in this case, their orientation. So these rocks have undergone strain. Well, what are these stresses that we talk about when we talk about stress being exerted on rocks? Well, really, there's just three types of stress. So there's extension, or the stretching of rocks, rocks being pulled in opposite directions. And the photos here dominantly show these rocks breaking along faults, although they could do other things as well. So this can result in rocks becoming thinner over time, actually attenuating the rock layers and stretching them out. So extensional stress is one major stress domain we see in rock deformation. Another one is compression. So the rocks are actually being squeezed, compressed. Think about them being in a vise, if you will. And this causes the rocks to become thicker, and also shorter in terms of their long direction. Here we're depicting a fault that's actually pushing these rocks up and over the top of the ones below. We'll get to that later on. We'll talk about faults, fault types as we go. So there's these two types of stress, and then our third one is what's known as shear stress, basically moving the blocks of rock past each other or laterally. So this would be shear stress. Think about if you put your hand on top of a deck of cards and then you push or pull your hand, you get that top card moving or sliding across the one beneath it. That would be an example of shear stress. So when you look at these three types of stress, you might have a little bit of a little epiphany moment going on, because these are all related to the plate boundaries. So remember, we looked at different types of plate boundaries, three fundamental types of plate boundaries. Divergent boundaries are places where we see extensional stress. So divergent boundaries are nothing more than the manifestation of extensional stress in a plate boundary setting. At convergent plate boundaries, we have compressional stress. So there's a host of structures we might associate with that type of tectonic setting. And then our third type of plate boundary, if you'll recall, was a transform plate boundary. And so transform plate boundaries are where we see shear stress being exerted on the rocks in that type of tectonic setting. So each one of those plate boundaries then is fundamentally tied to a type of stress that the rock is subjected to. And of course, as it's subjected to that stress, the rock will deform and there'll be a permanent change in the rock. That's what we call strain. Okay, so let's do a little demonstration here. Let me make my webcam photo a little bigger here. And what I have here is a piece of silly putty. Some of you might be familiar with this. It deforms. You can roll it in a ball and bounce it, whatever. What we're going to do is we're going to exert a stress on the silly putty, and we're going to do it twice and see how the silly putty behaves. I do this in class as a demonstration, but usually with another person. So we'll see how this goes here. So let's do the first run here. Okay, so there was our first demonstration. So what I did there was exerted an extensional stress on the silly putty. I pulled it apart. And notice how the silly putty behaved. We can sort of reconstruct what the silly putty looks like here. You can see initially it actually deformed a little bit by bending, but then actually snapped. You can see this clean break right here where the silly putty actually snapped. Okay, so that's our demonstration number one. I took the silly putty and exerted an extensional stress on it, pulled it apart, and it behaved one way. Now let's do the same thing with the silly putty. We're going to still extend or stretch the silly putty, but I'm going to change one variable here. Ready, set, go. So now notice the silly putty is still being pulled apart, still being stretched or extended, but now what's happening is it's not breaking. And in fact, I'm probably going off screen here. I have to back up so you can see the whole thing. And the silly putty just gets thinner and thinner and thinner, starts to sag, and then ultimately it breaks. And now I just have a silly putty mess on my hands here. So the difference there was we extended the silly putty both times, but the rate at which the silly putty was deformed, what we call the strain rate, was different. The first time I tried to literally pull it as fast as I could to make it snap. The second time it was pulled much slower. And this is exactly the way rocks behave. Rocks behave this way when a stress is exerted on the rock at a rapid rate. Rocks will tend to break. And when rocks are deformed more slowly, they'll tend to bend without breaking. So that's one factor. The other factor that's important is temperature. And so had I taken that silly putty and maybe put it in the fridge or outside because it's a cold day outside, it would have been easier for the material to break had it been colder than when I kind of like work it with my hands and knead it and kind of get it nice and warm. Then it's much more likely to behave by bending without breaking. And so if this makes sense, I'll go ahead and shrink my head down here a little bit for you. Then this defines these two types of behaviors we see in rocks. We have what's known as brittle deformation, where the rock breaks, and brittle deformation is manifested as these cracks running through the rock where there's offset, what we call faults. And we're going to spend some time in future episodes looking at faults, and then eventually we'll look at what faults produce in terms of things at the surface that can affect humans, and that's earthquakes. And so we have brittle deformation that occurs when we have fairly low temperatures and pressure, so shallower regions of the Earth's crust, nearer to the surface. Or we have high strain rates. So think again to that first silly putty demonstration I did where I pulled the silly putty very quickly and violently and it snapped and broke. That's an example of brittle deformation. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have what we call ductile deformation. The rocks in this case are bending and flowing without breaking. Okay, and so these usually take place when rocks are a little bit warmer. It could be deeper in the crust. It somewhat depends on the exact temperatures and pressures, and or could be due to lower strain rates. The rocks are being stressed more as a more protracted period of time, and so it might behave that way by bending without breaking. Now, and you can get both of these, so these aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. You can initially bend rocks to the point that they actually break. We actually a lot of times see folds and faults occurring together. But we'll look at these two components of rock deformation in future episodes. I think what we'll do with the next episode is we'll talk about how we define the orientation in three-dimensional space of a planar rock body, these concepts called strike and dip. So if you've heard those terms before and you haven't quite wrapped your head around it, make sure you tune into that next episode. And then in subsequent episodes, we'll look at faulting, which is brittle deformation, and we'll look at folding, which is ductile deformation. But thanks for joining me for this brief episode on rock deformation. I'm excited to get into this topic with you, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.